Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Joining me today is Gen Harimohan Iyer, and we are going to be talking about Pakistan. There is an undercurrent of a lot of things that it is doing in the area and perhaps all the way up to the Mediterranean. And we're going to examine what it's been doing, and to understand all this stuff, let's welcome our guest, General Harimohan Iyer. General Iyer, Namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel, sir. Iyer to Iyer, how are you?
Fine, and happy Pongal to you and all your viewers. Great to be back.
Thank you, sir, and
on
wish
the
you
show.
the same, sir. Yes, sir.
So, as I was telling Sriji just before we went on air, that this topic is very close to my heart, and also happens to be the theme line on which I'm trying to, put across a book. Possibly, hopefully, it should be in by the end of this year. So, whatever I'm going to speak today, you will not find it anywhere. It is my thoughts. It may be at variance with large amount of data and things which float around. It's certain thing which I have tried to build around this particular subject, and by and large, it will come from the notes which I've been scratching down before I structure it into a book. So that having said, great to start a new year on this topic, which I'll be possibly working the full of next year, this year, current year. So I will start with the question, and I think most of the viewers, whoever is online, the moment if somebody says, point out a place in the world which is called the axis of terror, and 8 out of 10 people will put their finger on our neighbor on the western side. It is no rocket science for people to understand where the epic or the epitome of terror currently lies. So I will try and bring out as to how Pakistan has reached where it is today, and I'll take it forward to what is in the store for all of us in the coming time. So the terror which originates from our Western Front can be classified as radical Islam. So where does radical Islam come from? So if you go back 5 to 6 centuries, when Islam actually started getting propagated across the world, it wasn't a kind of an offensive spread of a religion, where kingdoms were overthrown, captured, and a religion was, by and large, forced down upon the populace. So the religion which started somewhere in what is supposed to be today's Palestine or Saudi Arabia has today spread all over the world and is possibly the largest religion in the world today in terms of numbers, population. So therefore, it has been spread not by a peaceful manner in which many other religions got spread. It got translated in a kind of a violent method. By and large, that kind of an ideology, somewhere, though much more moderated today, still stands to exist as various organizations try and expand their religious base around the world. And that is where radicalism comes in. So to be able to spread its own signature around, a kind of ideology is spread that if you don't join us, then there will be problem for you. And that is how huge amount of conversions happen across the world. I'm not just talking about our subcontinent. It is happening all over the world. And it is a common saying that whenever a person, a radical guy, comes in contact with a body of people, he does emphasize that you should translate yourself to my way of thinking, my ideology. And one has also experienced in life, I'm sure many of your viewers will agree with me on this particular count. So having said that, I will go back now to a century, because now I'll get down to where did terrorism overtake this violence and where it became a terror-driven ideology. So if you go back to, let's say, 1948, there were two almost similar uh, nation nations created, or I'll say two sets of nations were created. One was created out of India, which translated itself into India and Pakistan based on religion. And the other one was carved out of Palestine, which split itself into Palestine and Israel. Now, there are two sets which almost came together. Now, let's come down to what happened in India. Whereas in regions where there was a Hindu domination, there was no issue being pushed beyond that. So, large amount of people had to move from our neighborhood back to India. But the only state in India which possibly had a Muslim majority continues to be the thorn around which the current crisis exists. 75 years on, we all understand what I am hinting at. Now you go back to Israel and Palestine. In Israel and Palestine, the thing is totally opposite. While the Hindus agreed to a two-nation theory, the Muslims of Palestine did not agree to the same two-nation theory which the British propagated there. So the Balfour Declaration, or whatever it was based on which Israel was carved out, is to date not accepted by Muslim countries. So therefore, large number of Muslim nations still do not recognize Israel as a nation. So see the dichotomy here, where when a Muslim splits, the view is different, and when a Hindu-dominated state splits, the view is different. And that is where the problem area starts. So when in Palestine they did not agree to the method in which a nation was carved out of it, they started finding ways to overthrow the other nations. So we started with the Arab-Israeli War of 1948, which didn't work. They went on to another war of 1956, which didn't work. Another set happened in 1967, it didn't work. And every time these wars happened, the expansion of Israel expanded beyond what it had at the start, which means the Muslims kept getting defeated and kept getting marginalized. And when I say war, it is not just within these two nations, it was the entire Muslim nations in the region which joined in. So 5 to 6 nations fought against one in that side. If you look at India, Pakistan in the same timeline, you had a war in 1948, then you had another war in 1965, and you had another war in 1971. See the correlations. It was out of a result of 1971 war that a portion of Pakistan got converted into a new nation called Bangladesh, which at that time kept its language above religion. Bangladesh became Bangladesh in 1971 because they felt their language as an identity was more than their religion as an identity. 5 decades down the line or 6 decades down the line, there has been a shift there, and we'll talk about it in the later part of my talk today. Whereas in Palestine, it was a standard thing. Somewhere in the 70s or late 60s, this aspect of using active militia, which is not regular army, to further their agenda started. And that is when groups like Hezbollah and Hamas made them small beginnings. Basically, it was the PLO which started it under the leadership of Yasser Arafat. And they started to resort to these kind of hit and run incidents to coerce the Israeli government into yielding. So if you look at what happened in the 70s, you had those plane hijacks, you had those assassination of a large number of, you had the Munich incident. That is one other major incident which can be underlined. These were starting incidents of how radical Islam translated itself into terror. Once again, I'm qualifying it as radical Islam because if you look at the large population of Muslims in the world, the radicalized population numbers are very, very minimal. Because they have such a large population base, despite having a very large radical numbers, the ratio is very, very limited. So by and large, it is not an alarming thing. If the radicalization can be cut down, this whole thing can be sorted out. And that is where the whole irony of the thing is that rather than coming down, it is actually expanding. And we'll talk about it later. So we were on that, the root cause, as I look at it, still stems out of Palestine. So whether it is the Shiites in Iran or the Sunnis of Saudi Arabia and Iraq, they both identified themselves with the Palestinians. And they began supporting these rogue elements, which were militias, and encourage them to get into habits of terror. And they found that it was much more cost effective than going for large scale war between nations because they were not able to achieve anything in those wars that they had fought before. So after 1973, you will not find an organized Israel-Arab war. It was all over. It is only Israel with Hamas or Israel with Hezbollah or these kind of factions which are at war since 1973. Last 50 years, there has not been an organized war in the Middle East. Now this, towards the end of the 70s, was percolated into Afghanistan. And to that extent, I will blame the CIA to a large extent because they felt that creating a rebel force in Afghanistan, which is based on ideology, is much cheaper to remove the Soviet influence which was there with Afghanistan since the 70s, when the Shah was deposed and the communists had started taking control of Afghanistan. And that is the period of time when what I call as transitional mobilization of forces happened. So you had people from Arabia, Africa, Middle East, Iran, all assembling in Afghanistan to fight for a cause. And that cause became identified as liberation of Afghanistan from communist hands, which was coined beautifully by our neighbor who was actually ushering it at that period of time. And he brought in this beautiful word called jihad. And everybody just joined in there. So in the 80s, when you came to this area, you found a huge amount of people who were funded by people who had vested interest in Afghanistan, who were armed by countries which had wars to settle with the Soviet Union. And it was marshaled by a nation which was created on the base of a religion. So the Afghanistan experiment, which was played under many themes or many scenes, the first one was the period between, let's say, 80 to 84, 85. Some amount of successes were there. And by and large, the Soviet Union was forced to withdraw from Afghanistan, leaving a weak Afghan government in place, which was due to fall in a due course of time. And somewhere around the mid-90s, once the Soviet Union collapsed, Afghanistan also fell into the hands of these agents. But still at that time, there was a semblance of tribal leadership. And that is why whichever faction came to power, it did not adopt the terrorism mode, but it became a regular government. But what happened after that was that entire amount of ideology driven people, a huge cache of people were available to our neighbor. So if you come to the late 80s, this huge number, which was available with Pakistan, was then available for them as, I will call them bonus force, low cost force, which they began infiltrating into India. If you can correlate the timeline, it was the time when JKLF re-emerged in 1987-88. It was the time when that fraud election was taken as a reason for so much of dissatisfaction in especially Kashmir, though there were Jammu regions also involved. And it was also the period when they were able to supplement them with a huge amount of force which had fallen back from Afghanistan and was available. And here Pakistan realized that this is the best low cost option for them rather than getting into direct conflict with India, because in every war that they had fought with India, they had lost their face as an army. So in order to maintain the army's supremacy in Pakistan, they felt that this is a suitable method in which we will keep the Indian forces engaged inside India. And that is the start of, I won't call it insurgency because they never had a role of an insurgent. There's a difference between an insurgent and a terrorist. Many people relate it as Kashmir insurgency. I'm sorry. Insurgency has to come from within. This was something which was propelled from outside. And their basic aim was to terrorize the populace. And as a result, in the late 80s, you found huge exodus of Hindus which were moved out of the valley. They had moved out to refugee camps in Jammu, Delhi, etc., etc. And they continue to stay even today. If you go to the valley today, you find all those Hindu homes today are now taken over or been sold out to their Muslim counterparts. And they cannot go back and settle down. Many people say, please get the Hindus back into the valley. I personally feel it is a very difficult task. So that is the way I look at how terror became a source, and especially a source in our neighborhood. So so therefore, if you look at Pakistan even today, Palestine continues to be something they rally their troops around. So you will find pro-Palestinian banners coming up in various neighborhoods. The third issues of this same terror thing was when the Americans were trying to disassociate from Afghanistan. People like Osama bin Laden, they felt cheated that they were, used and thrown away. So this Al-Qaeda, which was formed by Osama bin Laden, tried to take its wrath out of the Western state, which it felt had exploited them. And they felt that they had controlling the monarchy in Saudi Arabia through American influence. And that is why 9/11 happened. So when 9/11 happens, this whole terror, which was constricted to the Afghan Middle East region, now expands worldwide. So you have New York, which comes under terror, you have London, which comes under terror, you have Spain, which comes under terror, which means Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Terror spreads all over. And that is where there needed to be some place where this entire thing needed to be focused and controlled. And the person who was holding the key at that time was sitting in Pakistan. He sat there till he was finally, taken out by the US forces somewhere in 2010 or 11. While he was in Pakistan, though many people say that he had lost influence, I have my reservations about it. He was continuously monitoring his modules which were coming up in Syria, in Iraq, in northern Iran, Kurdistan, Turkey, and of course in the Yemen and those areas. And everywhere they felt that rather than getting into a conventional fight with a state, it was much better to bring the state to its knees by launching a terror incident, which will become very difficult for the ruling dispensation to communicate to its own populace. So that is the larger point which I am trying to bring out, that the इस पूरे फसाद की जड़ जो है, this the basic cause of this whole thing starts from Palestine. So the day Palestine gets sorted out or solved, this entire thing will not have fuel to continue. That is the first point which I am trying to bring out. Over a period of time, countries have been destroyed. So look at what happened to Syria. When Al Qaeda post Osama bin Laden splintered out, another organization called the ISIS came about, which itself is now splintered into many factions. So there is an ISIS faction which operates in Syria. There's another ISIS faction which operates out of northern Iran. There's another ISIS faction which operates in Kurdistan, Turkey. This ISIS has a global signature. It's got modules all over the world, because they are basically the radical elements which are populating itself across the world, which a larger aim of converting the entire world or bringing the entire world into an ideology of Islam. So that has been already stated by the basic document, that they want the caliph to come back to the chair, and they want to be the ones deciding what religion runs where in the world. Over a period of time, of course, because of lack of funds and interest, ISIS, by and large, their influence has been moderated. But when you look at all these elements, so whether it's Al Qaeda, whether it's ISIS, whether it is Hizbul Mujahideen, whether it is Lashkar-e-Toiba, or whatever, all these tanzeems today find safe havens in our neighborhood. And the person who is controlling them are roaming free despite being designated as a UN terrorist. UN designated terrorist like Hafiz Saeed is moving around freely, though Pakistan sometimes say that he's under arrest, sometimes conveniently say that he's not in Pakistan. But by and large, when you look at it, they are the ones which are controlling the tap, and the tap is controlled inside Pakistan. The larger moot question is, where is the fuel coming from? Paisa chahiye to keep this thing going. Unfortunately, the money is coming from the larger Muslim world. And they want to fuel it and keep them constricted to Pakistan, because they don't want this filth to come back to them, to haunt them in their own place. So they give money, take money and go and do whatever you want to do, wherever you want to do, but stay out of our needs. So you will find UAE, Saudi Arabia, to large extent Egypt, all well-to-do Arabian nations, Muslim nations, Indonesia, Malaysia, on the east. That is where the funds get generated and these people get, the fuel to continue. Today, as I look at it, when I see the whole landscape, larger landscape, what is happening in Pakistan is disturbing, because tomorrow these people are going to take over the reins at some stage, because they can't be controlled all the time. There will be some time when there will be dissatisfaction. If they get hold of the reins, which means if the army gets removed, and large number of times people say if Pakistan implodes, what happens then? If Pakistan implodes and the army loses control, these people will start holding on to a larger influence base inside Pakistan, which is not good both for India and the world. Because then they will create more nuisance value, because they have nobody to put the lid on top. So that is one reason which I always maintain in any talk that I do, that we don't want an unstable neighbor, we want a stable neighbor. Now let's get down to Bangladesh, a country which was created on the basis of a language. Bengali or Bangla Bhasha was the basis on which they revolted against the Pakistani authorities. Imposition on Urdu or imposition of Punjabi and non-availability of their own leaders to be able to dominate the political space. Over a period of time, the radicals elements which were breeded inside Pakistan have found space in Bangladesh. And they are the ones which are today running the roost. They have been able to destabilize elected government. And today we have a problem in a nation which by and large was supposed to be our friendly neighbor. So terrorism in Pakistan, if you say terror card, if Pakistan is at 10, Bangladesh, I will put it at 4. So what we have ended up is we have created now are both flanks. As far as India is concerned, we will have terror infested elements. Where does it take us is something we'll have to think ourselves, and I think that is where my writing is going to be focused on. So I will hold that part back because I like to have it in a larger scheme of things as part of my book. Now, Iran. Iran is another interesting country, a very, very forward-looking, well-to-do country under a monarch. Because it was not suiting the larger body, the monarch was removed, and an Islamic mullah was placed in the 70s. And in the last 50 years, Iran has gone from bad to worse. A very conservative society has become radicalized to a very large extent, and today has become hyper potential towards creating damage and terror across. I believe a big element of ISIS-K today operates from Iran and will be a major problem, especially in the coming days, because today there are talks about overthrowing the current regime and trying to reinstall the previous monarchy back into Iran. I don't know whether it's going to happen or not, but even if it happens, it's going to be a very fragile time in Iran because the radical Islam has got deep roots inside the society, and they will continue to operate despite whatever regime change may be inflicted, if at all it does happen. I have my doubts whether it can happen, because even in Iraq, where a favorable regime was attempted, it failed. To an extent, I be a little worried about Iran because it has got a huge influence on our trade and commerce relations, and we need to have a friendly regime which is free from these kind of incidents. So as a nation, I would want Iran to be a stable nation under a stable democracy. Whether it happens or not, it's for time to say. Coming down to other country which was given to me, Libya. Libya has been always ruled by rogues. So you had Colonel Gaddafi, who was in chair for almost 4 decades. Then he was taken out. Many people say it was a mistake taking him out because what it has created is it has created 4 mini Gaddafis. Now these mini Gaddafis have started creating many isolated areas of influence, and now nobody knows who's holding the chabi in Libya. And Libya, incidentally, has a large amount of commerce assets in form of oil and other natural resources, and sits on the Mediterranean. There is that choke point which is between Spain and North Africa. So all ship lanes which are flying into the Mediterranean, it comes through that choke point, and Libya happens to sit very strategically on that area. So, in larger
you're talking
sense,
about Gibraltar? You're talking about
Exactly.
Gibraltar?
Yeah, Gibraltar.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Gibraltar. Thank you. So Libya is a problem, and the earlier we all resolved to find a solution to it. It's been under a military rule for the last 5 to 6 decades. I don't see it changing now. And the biggest source of worry is our friend from our neighborhood has extended influence in Libya with the largest faction over there and is seemingly arming them with whatever. I don't know how he's finding money for it, but obviously there is some source of funds which he's using to arm the faction which is in power in Libya. So Libya can go back to those bad days uh, of the 70s and 80s. You remember that famous Entebbe raid when not Israeli, it was a French aircraft which originated out of Israel, was hijacked, and it initially went to Libya and then subsequently went to Uganda, and the Israelis had to launch a raid and get those hostages back. It's a very famous incident. But Libya and
Operation
those
Entebbe.
Operation Entebbe, yeah. So it was in those period of time when Libya was right up there as far as a rogue state is concerned. But over a period of time, it had mellowed down because it didn't have that kind of, and it felt that they were, getting bad publicity. Those Lockerbie bombers were also supposed to be Libyans, so they didn't want to get into it. They had created a kind of a neutral kind of scenario for quite some time. But now, over a period of last 2 to 3 years, I can see Libya also re-emerging on the terror map, which is not good for the world. So, in the larger sense, before I get into a discussion mode, I will just want to add the Gaza war was aimed at, clearing Hamas. Simultaneously, Israel also tried to get rid of Hezbollah. We have been trying to get rid of all these Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, the elements which are creating trouble in our states. But what one has realized is that these are, elements which can't be totally obliterated because they re-emerge in some form or the other. So Lashkar-e-Toiba used to operate as Harkatul Ansar earlier, and when they were put under UN ban, they changed its name and re-emerged somewhere else. So this solution is a very tricky one as I look at it. Military is not a solution. We have to find a solution where people have to be brought back into the larger civil background or civilian outlook, which involves that the states which are sponsoring these should be so badly punished that they are forced to lift the support to these terror elements. And we should put a lid to these radicalizing elements, these mullahs who are radicalizing people in these countries. It's a very difficult proposition because the lead has to be taken over by the country in which these problems are occurring. And till the time that country suffers, they are not going to change their way. Because, like I said, for Pakistan, this is the low-cost option, and they have been pushing it for the last 4 decades. For Palestine, again, it was a low-cost option, both Gaza and the West Bank. To a large extent, West Bank over the last 15 odd years has been much better than Gaza. But Gaza has been a problem area for Israel for the last 2 to 3 decades. In fact, every time, since the time, I think 2002, when they were given this area to govern, it has been a hotbed of terrorists only. And if you look at the way the neighborhoods like Egypt or Jordan respond to it, it is not that they want these people. So they will not allow these people to come into their countries. They are very, very wary about it. Syria has by and large been destroyed. It's no longer a homogeneous country anymore. Eastern Turkey, to a large extent, is also no longer a homogeneous country. Come further east, you have Azerbaijan, which is also struggling to get these radical elements away. Down south, Afghanistan currently, unfortunately, is being ruled by a body which basically emanates from this radicalism, but somehow in the last 1.5, 2 years, one has seen a large amount of sense coming into the way they are governing Afghanistan, especially the way they are treating diplomatic relations with other countries, especially India. So there is hope over there. I have a bigger problem which you are not specified in your topic today. I am more worried about countries like Malaysia, which are very large GDPs. Countries to some extent Indonesia, because radicalization is spreading there also. And should they also come into the same state of affairs, then the world body will have to find ways to isolate these nations. Because right now we are not being able to stop Pakistan, Syria, and to some extent Saudi Arabia, which is funding this large body. But when you have a much larger ecospace for these people to function, it is going to be an area of problem. So as I look at it, the next 15 years are going to be testing times, especially in the region that we live in. We may not be forced to confront a conventional army, but we will continue to be bothered by these elements, may not be by direct terror incidents, but definitely by pinpricking us at various places. I look at Bangladesh, unless we are able to install a suitable political authority going from bad to worse, and that is an area of disturbance as I look at it. If we don't nip it now, it is going to become very bad in coming years. And Pakistan today has gone beyond redemption, if I look at it. It is currently in a space where, if normalcy occurs in two of its states, they are only going to be more emboldened to harvest these terrorists. So it's better that they stay engaged in their war against their own insurgents. The insurgency in the northern state of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or the southern state of Balochistan, and to some extent in Sindh. As long as these insurgencies continue, Pakistan will be kept under control. But if these insurgencies are put out, then they'll be emboldened to use these elements for creating more terror in the region. So it is a terror card and it is a cheap card. Like I say, why I'm saying cheap? Wars are very expensive. 4 days of Op Sindoor has put back Pakistan by billions of dollars. So they were able to achieve much more by these Chutput incidents everywhere. I don't know the response to say that we'll go conventional against a terrorist incident. These are diplomatic decisions that the country has taken. I don't know how this is going to manifest, but there will be time when some degree of force may be applied, and we need to find ways to control or shut off this tap of terror, and then thereafter cut out radical Islam, because radical Islam is not just coming from outside. Over a period of time, it is growing within our own country, and it is happening in all countries today. Germany is in trouble to a large extent. France is in trouble, and I am told even UK is in trouble, because there is growth, even growing amount of radicalization, and that is going to bite them in coming days. So with that, I think, stop here, because I want you people to buy my book as and when it comes into publication, which happens to be based on this. So what I have tried to communicate to you is the basic structure in which I am looking at constructing my book. It is trying to research out as to how and where terror started, and how terror has reached where it has reached, and where it can reach if we don't put suitable measures right now. That is generally the line in which I'm trying to put my thoughts around. So I'm sure many of you, if it comes out in time, it will be available for people to read. I'll stop here, and if there are questions, we can have discussion with Sriji if you want. You can poke me and maybe
Thank you
take
so
out
much. Thank you so much, General Iyer. Very very coordinated. You've really traced the root of this problem. I have only one question. You said that it is better for India if Pakistan stays as a single entity rather than it breaks up into its individual parts, because then these extremists will have a free run. We have a situation here in the sense India probably is giving back to Pakistan what it was giving to India in the 90s. Let's just say. I'm a neutral observer.
I don't want to say that. I don't want to
Yes,
say that.
I don't want you to say that. I don't want you to say that. I'm just saying that India can do the same thing.
We can
But
do it.
yeah, but you see, the problem that I see in this is that if the army understands that, look, you are here just because you are the best of the worst of the lot. Let me put it that way: best of the worst of the lot, who can run Pakistan. So you need to understand that you have to also follow some rules, but they don't seem to want to do that. And this is where the crux of the problem is. I mean, I'm going to again step away from what you may want to agree or not agree.
No, I'm
Look
not.
at what is
I'm not
happening.
disagreeing.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. But you must understand, when you create two, let's say we create two nations inside Pakistan, when they don't have resources, they are dried up for funds, there's going to be more dissatisfaction, right? If those people's aspirations are not met, they are going to tomorrow, create trouble for you. I'm putting it in a larger sense. You can, fill in the gaps which I'm leaving for you.
Absolutely, sir.
But
Absolutely.
in the larger sense, I feel yes. If Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which I don't think will break up as a nation, possibly it will try and become part of Afghanistan, if at all it happens, which is natural. But what will happen is Afghanistan's influence will come closer to you. So today you have a regime which is not against you, okay? But let's say tomorrow a regime which, I can put it back to say what happened with Bangladesh. Please equate it that way. For 10,
Yeah.
15 years, it may be favorable to you. After 15, 20 years, those rogue elements which will feel cheated because of whatever happened to them, they'll add up and create trouble for you. So in that, I'm talking in that context. So the best example for us to see is what is happening in our eastern. We created a nation with good faith. It was going under genocide, huge amount of genocide committed by a conventional army, openly done. They should have gone under war crimes tribunal. I don't know somehow why we missed out on that.
Why doesn't India do that, sir? You brought 93,000 back into India.
I'm surprised.
You should have done a Nuremberg-like trial.
So
Got that ass, what
read,
is his name? Niazi ass and
so
all
when
the
I,
Yahya
when,
Khan
I,
ass.
when I read a lot of Pakistani writings on it, I believe, I don't know how true it is, I believe Bhutto told Indira Gandhi, you keep these 93,000 if you don't want to give it back, I don't care. So now what you do, the leverage which you thought possibly is a leverage, they say, I'm not worried about it, keep it. So maybe, I don't know, these are all writings which have no authority to back it. But that having said, I also agree there should have been a war crimes tribunal, people should have been booked. Why it didn't happen? We can't go back 50 years. We'll have to stay where it is. But the other point I'm trying to bring out is a nation which was created by you, a nation which was supposed to be indebted to you because you freed them from so many, agonies that they were facing, right? Bengalis were being trampled upon by Punjabis in Bangladesh.
Absolutely.
So today the same Bengali in Bangladesh, because that religion radicalization has come in, forgot to be associated with his language, but is getting back to be associated with the religion and is blaming India to have participated in that operation to carve out Bangladesh. So you understand the larger prospect. That is likely to happen much faster in KPK. Understand? That is what I am worried about. Third part, which large number of people ask me, they say, why can't we go and take POK? All right, today you have a semblance of balance between Jammu and Kashmir in terms of religion. Imagine if KPK comes to you. Sorry, if POK comes to you, you will upset that balance. So there are some people who think on those lines. Getting POK is somebody, okay, झंडा गाड़ दिया मैंने, उसके बाद मैनेज कौन करेगा? Like I said last time, it's very easy to capture a country, but it's very difficult to administer it. Now you're already in trouble in Muslim-dominated Kashmir. You want to add on to it. So then there are issues. I'm sure people would have thought over it when they said, okay, let us keep it this way. We are very happy here. Though we want to keep it alive, saying it is a political decision. Well, when that political card is going to be played, I don't know. Right? So these are dynamics which I can't give an answer today because it might be totally different 10 years down the line. But larger said, this a stable nuclear power on our Western Front, stable. I don't want them to be friendly, but a stable, non-interfering power. Settle everything with them, say this is the line, we are okay with it. No more this thing. But we have to find a solution. You can't have a live issue, just there because somebody has, again, these are, I can say these are my views and my points of view. But then there has to be somewhere you have to find a solution. Right now, there is no solution coming and no solution in line. And let me tell you, to capture POK, you need a huge amount of force. Right? So I can put it this way. You know about that Haji Pir Pass?
Yes.
Which we captured in 65 and gave it back. So tomorrow, if I have to capture it, I have to apply almost 1/3 of my army just to capture Haji Pir Pass. So we are talking about POK, which is, way beyond that. So it is, and see what is happening to the Russians in Ukraine. They are traveling, I think, 100 meters or 200 meters in a day. That is the kind of advance, and one day they are pushed back 400 meters also. So it's a question of one step forward and two step back there also. So it's a difficult ball game. That having said, it is not impossible. But why? What are you gaining out of it?
Why exactly? What are we getting out of it? Yeah.
Somebody has to make a cost-benefit analysis to say, is it in my favor? Is it giving me good dividends? Of course, if it's giving good dividends, if it's going to sort out your basic issues, go ahead. I'm very sure some dispensation tomorrow may feel that is the solution they are looking for. They'll go ahead with it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's take a look at, I just wanted to touch upon Libya. See, we did a program with Colonel Mayank Chaube yesterday, I think, and this was in English, if I remember correctly. So viewers, you should go back and watch that because he has made some very good dot connection. That's all we can do, viewers. We are analyzing what's happening on what we are seeing on the surface. One of the interesting developments that I have heard, and I don't have any proof of this, is that many from Gaza, when Israel was trying to comb the place for Hamas, many escaped through tunnels in Egypt, and they are now believed to be holed up in Libya. So this is an interesting hypothesis in itself.
They may not have gone through tunnel. They might have even gone the sea route, because Israel, they might have gone. Whomsoever must have gone into Egypt, they might have been banished into Libya also. Very much possible.
Yeah, true. So this thing, each one of these things, they will never really go away. They'll never be obliterated because the root cause doesn't lie with Hamas. The root cause is somewhere else. That needs to be addressed, in my opinion.
I'll give a very, very crude analogy to it. It's like pest control.
Yes.
All right. So this pest control has to be done. Seriously, I'm very serious when I use this word pest control, because terrorists are pests. They have to be obliterated and they'll come back and you have to do pest control again. So there has to be a periodic pest control of these elements, and that is what we do. So today we are very clear. If you want to come this side, you are most welcome. If you want to continue, then we'll send you where you deserve to go. So that is something which needs to be done, and it has to be done across, and that's all I'm saying. Unfortunately, what happens is people who do pest control once, then they say, okay, these pests have become pets. They remove the S and make them pets. And then the pets subsequently become pests and they bite them. So we have to find ways to manage that. And I'm sure the people I'm hinting at, you understand whom I am hinting at. They have burned their hands multiple amount of times, but they don't learn. That's the biggest problem. They continue to go back there. It's I think somewhere connected in their it's programmed in the brains that after some time you have to go back to where you started. So that is the problem area.
Thank you so much, sir. We just have a couple of acknowledgements and then we can wind it up today. Thank you, Abhay, for becoming a YouTube member. And also thank you, Aditya, for becoming a YouTube member. And that brings us to a close of today's program, a thoroughly informative one. Viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. One last thing that I wanted to mention. General Harimohan Iyer also has placed his Sengol right behind him. If you can look at it, it is placed on a pedestal right behind him. And I'm hoping that those of you who haven't got your Sengols with enclosures, feel free to place your orders. And we may have more things coming your way very, very soon. Thank you once again, General Iyer. We'll be seeing you again next Monday. Namaskar. Namaskar.